The Incredibles came out 14 years ago. That is nearly a decade and a half of Elastigirl being the hottest Pixar mom of all time. Disney Pixar? Would it be Disney mom? Animated moms of all time, period? Probably. Point is, it's been a decade and a half. She's still perfection. The Incredibles 2. So The Incredibles 2 is written and directed by Brad Bird, who wrote and directed The Incredibles 1. It picks up literally right where the first Incredibles left off, and now there's this new guy who's like, hey, Elastigirl, come with us. We got some missions for you. Maybe superheroes can get into a good life. Maybe this whole illegal thing could just go away. So while she's off with them, Mr. Incredible stays home with the kids and needs to be a stay-at-home dad. That's pretty much the brick and clay of The Incredibles 2. And what I liked about this movie is they do keep the family dynamic meets superhero movie dynamic. In fact, I watched the first Incredibles last night, or night before last, depending on when I upload this or when you're watching it. Point is, I wanted a refresher and it's still perfect. But I realized it's more like a Mission Impossible movie than a superhero movie, which now, through hindsight, I didn't see it before. Brad Bird was perfect to peg to direct Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Because The Incredibles is more like a Mission Impossible movie than it is a superhero movie, or maybe it's a superhero movie that's in the Mission Impossible vein. It even has its soundtrack, the tries to have that old school spy twang to the score, but it worked for The Incredibles and they kept that score for The Incredibles 2. I love that. I was afraid they were going to switch out the score for some other type of score. Like, oh, music's changed, we gotta change with it, but you gotta keep it Incredibles, and they kept it Incredibles. Also, the family dynamic is very much here. I didn't like all of what they gave us. I'll get to that in a bit, but for what I liked the fact that The Incredibles 2, like The Incredibles 1, illustrates really what Caesar illustrates, which is apes together strong. They're stronger together. I like that we got more Frozone in this movie. Frozone, other than Dash, is my favorite character in The Incredibles, and we get a bit more of him in this movie. You can see with the ice effects how technology is it's gotten better. When the action is going down in this movie, that's really where it shines. The action sequences in this movie are better than anything most movies and or franchises could ever hope to get. Really entertaining stuff right there. And really, I'm glad Elastigirl really shined in this movie. She shows everyone, yes, stretchy powers are not stupid, haters of Fantastic Four. It's all about how you portray it in the film. Elastigirl is great, but Mr. Incredible, for the most part, is staying home with the kids. It's the dad who stays at home to parent the kids, who's not used to being the stay-at-home dad, so he feels out of place, inefficient, he's sleep deprived. Sound familiar? I know, because a lot of movies have done that. It's a cliche, but this movie doesn't. Granted, you could argue, yeah, but they're super kids. But Violet and Dash are pretty well behaved, so it's all about it's a super baby. And that does get amusing, it really does. In the end, you strip away the mask, it's still the dad who stays at home, who's not used to being a stay-at-home dad. It's the first act of Jersey Girl. Yeah, you didn't mishear that. I referenced Jersey Girl. The villain's pretty cliche, the motivation, and you just see it coming a mile away. I don't mean to make this a review of Incredibles 1, but I really felt that they hit the bullseye with Syndrome. In fact, Syndrome would have been perfect to have in Incredibles 2 rather than Incredibles 1. I think Incredibles 1, for what it was, would have been a fine movie. If the villain for this movie was in that movie, they'd have to switch up the motivation a little bit. But it could be done, but still have that scene at the beginning where he tells that little kid, Buddy, like, all right, Buddy, go away. Then in The Incredibles 2, there's this new Syndrome. Who's he? Oh, he's Buddy. From the first movie. That would really tie the first and second one together. But Syndrome's perfect for the first Incredibles, but if you're gonna have a villain who is so closely personally tied with the hero, at least for his motivation, you have to come out swinging for the villain in the second movie. Like Batman Begins, personal villain for Bruce Wayne. Second movie, you come out swinging with the Joker. This movie didn't really do that. There's no pre-existing villains in The Incredibles, so you gotta make it up as it goes along, but the point is, I don't feel Incredibles 2 outdid the villain from Incredibles 1. Like a big thing I can point to right now is the pacing. Sometimes I felt the pacing was off. Sometimes I felt it dragged on a bit when it was at home with Mr. Incredible and the kids. The Incredibles and The Incredibles 2 are roughly, I think they're the same runtime, give or take 2 minutes. They're each about 2 hours long. The Incredibles 2 is a 2-hour long movie that feels about 2 hours long. The Incredibles 1 is a 2-hour long movie that feels about an hour and a half. I feel like I'm gonna leave you with the feeling that like I was bagging on the movie. I don't mean for that to be the case. I enjoyed the movie, I really did. It was a really fun time, but it's not as profound as the first Incredibles movie. If you look at Syndrome for the first Incredibles movie, the entire philosophy he's going for is a very teachable moment. The idea that if everyone's special, that means no one is. That was the first time I personally had ever heard that. I'm not gonna go so far as to say it was the first time it was ever said ever, but I remember hearing that being like, oh my god, like, that's a very real thing. That movie taught me something. It changed my philosophy, my perception. This movie doesn't have anything like that, but it's very enjoyable. And given what the villain was and what the villain could do, I feel like there could have been a moment like that, but I didn't walk away with that. I don't know if this movie had something like that for you that I'm missing. Comment below, let me know. Bit of sequelitis in the sense that sequels are rarely as good as the first. All things considered, The Incredibles 2 was a fun time, no alcohol required. Alright, so The Incredibles 2, have you seen it? What did you think about it? E3 kind of put me behind a bit. Would have had this review up much earlier, but hey, E3, time. So I imagine you've seen it. What did you think about it? Whatever you thought, comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more.